Hello, we are Group 7, comprised of Emily Conlan, Aidan, Friederich, and Johanna Fritzinger, and the following is our presentation on our final project report for EBME 421 Bioelectric Phenomenon. We will be presenting on project prompt number 5. The problem that we have been working on is as follows. To test the hypothesis that epileptic coupling follows the strength duration curve principle, large amplitude, short duration spikes, or NMDA spikes, can activate neighbor neurons similar to long-duration, low-amplitude spikes. Vary amplitude and duration, and plot one another versus the other at threshold. From this prompt, we tested the hypothesis that epileptic coupling of pyramidal neurons follow the strength-duration curve principle. To expand on this prompt, we will be defining two key concepts to understanding our outputs. Firstly, neurons exist in conductive medium, which allows extracellular voltages emitted by neurons to affect their surrounding area. These voltages can contribute to the membrane potential of adjacent neurons, enabling them to fire by changing their surrounding electrical field. This phenomenon is called epileptic coupling and can cause neurons to fire without direct stimulation. Pyramidal neurons commonly display epileptic coupling since they are closely overlapped in the brain, so we will be using these neurons as the basis of our project. One graph from a paper entitled Epileptic Coupling of Cortical Neurons, conducted by Anastasio et al. In 2011, which studied the effect of epileptic coupling in pyramidal neurons, can be seen in this slide. Magenta represents the extracellular voltage applied, and blue is the resulting intracellular voltage. Next, we will define the strength duration curve. A strength duration curve is a common mechanism used in evaluating how a particular system reacts to an input. For this project, we are aiming to show that an input current into the extracellular space at a certain duration will generate an action potential in a neighboring neuron. This will be plotted for all the variations of current and duration.
For this project, we were provided with MATLAB code developed by a predoctoral student in Dr. Duran's lab. The MATLAB code consists of 6 scripts demonstrating epileptic coupling by inputting a current at a distance of 5 microns away from the area that contains the pyramidal neuron. The resulting membrane potentials at the dendrite and soma of the pyramidal neuron due to random extracellular stimulation are shown above. To adapt the provided code to fit our problem, our first step was to modify the constants provided to fit what we found in literature. Then we altered the current input into the extracellular space to determine the effect on the system. Our second step was to iterate through multiple input currents and determine what duration allows us to reach our excitation threshold to generate the strength duration curve. For our first step, in addition to modifying the constants, we also eliminated a majority of the time points from the simulation to decrease the code runtime. As previously mentioned, there was also a section of the code that inputted a randomized current into the extracellular space, which was eliminated. Our preliminary results from part 1 of our methods can be seen here. The input to the system was a 50 microamp pulse for 3 milliseconds to determine what our threshold should be for the remainder of the input currents. From this, it was determined a sufficient threshold would be at least negative 25 millivolts.
So here we have the code modification. So we tweaked our currents slightly, our parameters slightly to generate sufficient spikes in the soma and dendrite. These resulted in being closer to the values seen in the actual code. And then we introduced spikes, current spikes at t equals 50 milliseconds. Now this ranged from high amplitude inputs and to low amplitude inputs, and then low pulse widths to high pulse widths. So the graph on the right shows some examples of that, with a high amplitude and a low pulse width, and then a low amplitude and a high pulse width graph, and then somewhere in the middle for the last line. Model time was reduced to 200 milliseconds to allow us to iterate between 0 and 100 nanoamps and 0 and 10 milliseconds for the pulse width. And this resulted in roughly 10,000 unique inputs. And then once to classify the thresholds, we had the spikes go up to 25 millivolts, and that classified as the axon was firing. And then this was put into a separate matrix in order to get the results.
Here we have the final results of the code. The computational results are shown as blue dots and are compared to some theoretical data in red. To get the theoretical data, the Rio-Base current, IRH, was found to be 9 nanoamps, and the Chronaxi pulse width, TCH, was found to be 3.9 milliseconds. And using the equation shown, the theoretical curve was produced. As you can see, the computational data follows the theoretical curve closely, showing that ephaptic coupling of pyramidal neurons follows the strength duration curve, similar to normal synaptic coupling.
Thank you.